Welcome to the virtual lunch, May 6th.
So I'm Richard Rogers. I am the Executive Director and Registrar of the Civil Resolution Tribunal here in British Columbia, Canada. And we do a lot of online dispute resolution. We're handling about currently 6,000 disputes a year. And with some changes government has made recently, we're projecting that to grow to somewhere between 15,000 to 30,000 cases a year that we'll be resolving almost exclusively in an online environment by next year. We've been operational for 4 years now. When we started, we were regarded as certainly the first in Canada, possibly the first in the world. We are essentially government sanctioned, so our decisions and orders are enforceable through the British Columbia court system as though they are an order of the court. We are a part of the justice system here, and we're very user focused. So our starting point is actually just to provide people with information about their dispute area, what their options are, what their rights are to a certain extent. It's regarded as an expert system, although it is certainly very much human-driven content on there for now. It's something where we see in the future AI should be able to help us improve it. From there, if people wanted to pursue their dispute further, they start a formal process where they give us all the information. We contact the other party, engage them in the process. If they don't engage, we have the authority to issue default orders, and then we do an online facilitation process with them to try and encourage early resolution of the disputes. And so at this point, we're resolving about 85% of our disputes without the need for an adjudication or hearing process. But where that is required, we do have the ability for our members who have similar authorities to judges to hear the evidence virtually and make a binding decision on the parties. That is done almost exclusively online, telephone for some of the facilitation, but all of the hearings are done through written submissions, uploading electronic evidence, bolstered where necessary. At the member's discretion, they can do telephone or video conference with the parties to hear additional evidence and submissions. End to end, we're online. The Solution Explorer is sort of this front-end tool that provides not legal advice, it's legal information. So we're not advising them on the specific circumstances of their case. We are providing it still at a fairly general high level, but it is fairly comprehensive. So for example, someone with a debt claim or a contract issue with another party, come in, select the right category. Of all the challenges, that's probably the most tricky one, is for them to choose the right category to enter in. Basically, it's a series of narrowing questions that bring them to recommendations, conclusions, and an outcome. And then we provide them with a summary of that, plus tools they can use to try and resolve the dispute on their own, such as demand letters. In some cases, if it's a regulated area, we'll provide them with contact information for the regulatory body, suggest they go contact them. And there's also summary sheets that provide specific information about issues that are relevant to that area, all of which are written at a grade 6 reading level. So the intent here is to serve laypersons almost exclusively. We do certainly have the participation of lawyers. What we were seeing is you would go into a specific area of law and request information. And if you're lucky, there might be a government agency or someone who's providing you with this 10 to 15 page PDF document that lists everything ever written about the law in that area. What we wanted to do is deliver bite-sized components. So any court system could take that concept, even the application we're using. The trick is to get the information on there in a way that laypersons are going to consume it, essentially. So I think any justice system entity could use that, but definitely it is an access to justice initiative to try and provide laypersons with some level of understanding of the law related to their issue, in particular, helping them to try and understand, is this just me complaining about something, or do I actually have a legal right that I can enforce here? Well, because we're basically government sanctioned, that makes it a little easier, so that, for example, for our small claims jurisdiction, where they would normally go down to the courthouse and file a document there, the first point of contact, the courthouse would tell them, no, you don't come here for that amount, you go to the Civil Resolution Tribunal. And by the way, you don't have to walk down to the courthouse or drive here, you could have just done this online. We've done some Google ad work where if someone searches small claims in BC, it'll bring up the Civil Resolution Tribunal, and also some advertising through media. Certainly government announcements have indicated that we're open for business, that sort of thing. And we also, because of some of the initiatives that the lawyers here aren't too happy with, that's resulted in some media coverage as well. So certainly that's helped raise our profile. With Richard Susskind, in his most recent book, he referred to the Civil Resolution Tribunal as basically the best model currently. Our chair in particular, Shannon Salter, has traveled to a number of jurisdictions around the world. We have the principle that we will be continuous improvement and constantly looking to improve our services and make them better. But we also recognize that we're sort of the first example and fully expect that there will be bigger and better examples of what we're modeling right now in the future. So we expect to learn from others over time as well. Really, the big numbers are in family, and that's probably where the opportunity is right now, in particular, where basically the courts here, as in most places, are essentially shut down and not operating. So the courts are scrambling around trying to figure out not just how do we do this, but philosophically, can we conduct hearings by Zoom or MS Teams, or do we have to go the traditional route and do everything in person, have paper filing? The joke that has played on since this project started is that our court system here has had a fax filing pilot project since 1994. And it's still in pilot mode. So, and British Columbia is one of the jurisdictions that traditionally has been ahead of the curve on some things. Like we've had e-filing in our court system since 2004, I think it is. But that's still all it is e-filing. Still have to be physically signed in person, scan them in, and then upload them into the court system. Currently, we're probably still a very small player in the overall justice system in British Columbia. But the model itself is something that now the other players in the justice system are looking at seriously, largely because of COVID-19. We require that they use the expert system before coming into the actual formal tribunal process, but there are people who clearly, in their minds, they are so convinced that they are right and they have a wrong that needs to be remedied that they'll find the shortest path through the expert system and they ignore all the information that's provided there. And then they get into our tribunal and it's very clear that they either didn't use the expert system properly or didn't read the information they were provided. And we have to deal with those cases. There's more hands-on those cases required because of errors in the application, problems with the application, jurisdictional issues, that sort of thing. And there's just the other issue is that they're not necessarily vexatious, but they just don't understand what their claim really is. And that's an ongoing issue we're always going to have with laypersons, is both what is the essential aspect of their claim. We don't require that they put it in legal terms, but at least describe something that forms the basis for a claim. And then when we get into the actual hearing process or adjudication, what evidence is relevant to that? And many people fail not because they don't have a claim, but because they can't bring forward evidence to prove their claim. And something that we're trying to figure out, how do we address that without providing a preference to one party over another? Going back to the expert system, just looking at some numbers here, and we have, since we started, over 115,000 explorations of our Solution Explorer. Only about 14% of those go on to the Civil Resolution Tribunal process. So at the Solution Explorer expert system level, we're weeding out about 85% of cases. Of that 14%, all of them will require some level of human interaction. You know, there's certainly some automated parts to it, but one of the best pieces of advice we got from one of our system designers very early on was, resist the urge to automate early. Wait till you really understand what's going through there. So we have already seen where, you know, if we had committed to a certain process that we had designed up front and automated it, we'd be spending a lot of money reversing that process now. But AI could provide some benefit down the road there and say, you've got a body of decisions here. There's sufficient continuous or similar parts to these disputes that AI could help you identify those ones that fall into that and provide that information back to the parties and say, look, this appears to be what you're complaining about. You should look at these tribunal decisions saying that you can't bring that to the CRT. This is where you should go. But also here locally, like I said, family law, divorce is something where online dispute resolution, we think there's some options there. So we're looking at that and seeing whether there's some guidance it'll provide us if they'll go a different route technology-wise. So at this point, that's it. And I also have to admit, because we're busy enough, we sort of end up, other than these times we're asked to speak to other groups like this one, we tend to put our heads down a fair bit and, much like other jurisdictions do, forget to put our head up and look around at what's going on elsewhere. So that's something we have to do as well.
Richard Rogers, everybody.